Welcome back, fellow babies, to the Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. We are hopeful you're watching us on SIFTD as a Patreon patron. If you are, thank you so much for your support. If you are not, we are hopeful that you have linked your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account, and we're getting paid by Twitch, and that costs you nothing if you've already joined Amazon Prime. All you have to do is connect the two, we get paid, and you get the show before everybody on YouTube. If you are just too lazy and too lame and you're watching us on YouTube, you're getting it a week late, you can subscribe on YouTube and we will absolutely give you the show early. That costs more money than just joining as a Patreon patron, but your call. If that's just a simpler way for you to do it, go ahead and go to the YouTube channel and you'll be able to figure it out, and instructions below. Today's question from the SIFTD site from Raphael Michael. Is the price increase to $70 per game warranted? Do you suspect all publishers will follow suit? Will it cause consumers to buy fewer games? Instead of increasing the price of games, why don't publishers just discount the games less often? Nintendo games hardly ever drop in price, but the rest of them, I know I can wait a few months and get a good deal. All right, so $70, is it warranted? That's a fair question. The total inflation we've had since 2005, when games went from 50 to 60, is something like 27%. You guys can look it up. I'm within one percentage point. And so you could say, all right, a $60 game should be $74, whatever 27% is, $76. And so 70 is totally fair. And sure, you can say inflation drove the cost up. The difference is that since 2005, we lost a bunch of publishers, which means that it's sort of like if all hamburger makers went out of business except McDonald's and Burger King, would they be justified in raising the price? They're selling more burgers. And so all the publishers are selling more burgers. That's what's going on. As far as is it justified, we've had 27% inflation, but inflation doesn't work across the board for everything. Yeah, the cost of making a game may have gone up 27%, but probably not. The average AAA game, has about 200 people working on it. They work on it for about between 3 and 4 years. They make about $100,000. I mean, some of the guys make 150 and some of the guys make 50, but 100's a good round number. So 100,000 times 200 people is 20 million bucks a year. 3 years is 60 million bucks. 4 years is 80 million bucks. That hasn't moved much. And I've asked each publisher how much more next-gen games cost than current-gen games. And the consistent answer I've gotten is single-digit millions. So the cost of upping the frame rate and the cost of taking advantage of the much faster GPUs that are going into the Xbox Series X and PS5 aren't as great as you would think. It's a little bit higher art. I mean, it's kind of one-time technology set up and some art. And so, the cost probably has gone up 10%. And should we raise the price 10% to make up for that? Or should we figure out a way to make the money elsewhere? And I think that's your second, third, fourth, fifth, or third, fourth, fifth questions. So I personally don't think $70 is warranted. But if that's the business model that, a publisher, and so far the only one who said something is Take-Two, wants to adopt, then if you want to play NBA 2K20, you're paying $70. Do I suspect all publishers will follow suit? I do not. And the reason for this is that I've covered this sector for 19 years. Yeah, I used to have dark hair and short dark hair. I've covered the sector for 19 years, and every time a game has come out, and I've studied it since '85, the pricing on games is what is called MSRP, Manufacturer Suggested Retail Price. The reason for the letter S, suggested, is it's against the law for a manufacturer to mandate price. Think of it like wearing a mask. A lot of people think it's against the law to mandate wearing a mask. you actually can do that, but that's for safety. You can't mandate a price. That's price fixing. That's anti-competitive. We have laws that prohibit that. So the manufacturer, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, can suggest to the publisher a price that they think would be good to retail their games at. And with only the exception of premium editions, the publishers have always followed MSRP. And so what normally has happened is Sony and Microsoft will launch the console and say, as they did in 2005 and 6, the MSRP is going from $49.99 to $59.99, but charge what you want. There were plenty of games on Xbox Xbox 360 and PS3 that came out at $40 because they weren't full games, or they were extensions. I think we saw that with Far Cry. There are $40 games that come out of that are shorter games. So everything doesn't have to be 60. There's tons of games come out at $20 and $15. But the highest you saw was $49.99 until the Xbox 360 and PS3, and then you saw $59.99 thereafter, with the exception of the Red Dead Redemption Collector's Edition that comes with a horse and chaps and 6 guns and a holster and all sorts of cool stuff. You would get like some doofy Call of Duty that would come in a little box with a custom controller or whatever for $150. So everybody followed MSRP. This time around, MSRP hasn't yet been announced, but Microsoft said they have something called Smart Delivery. And what Microsoft said with Smart Delivery is, if you buy a game on our old console, Xbox One, and you then later get an Xbox Series X, the game you bought on Xbox One will work. So they're basically telling you, if you buy a $60 game, it'll work on the Xbox Series X. Now, they haven't said if that's all games or just games that are made for both, but I assume it's the latter. So if you buy this year's Call of Duty, it'll work on both. I think the plain signal is $59.99, and we're not going higher. So this Take-Two move on NBA 2K is the first I've seen ever where a publisher decided to raise the price unilaterally. And it's up to consumers whether they're going to accept that or not. So the answer to your question, will publishers follow suit? If consumers balk, and if NBA 2K sells fewer units than people expect, then I think that the other publishers will not follow suit. If NBA 2K is really that much better on Series X and PS5, and everybody raves about it, and the other publishers figure, why not try? Maybe. Fortunately, NBA 2K is one of the first games out this fall. Comes out around September 30th. And the Xbox Series X and PS5 dates haven't been announced. I've heard November 6th. We'll see. But if I had to bet, the only game that's going to be higher than $59.99 is NBA. The other publishers won't follow suit. Your question, instead of increasing the price of games, why don't the publishers just discount less often? Discounting is really a function of capturing as much revenue as you possibly can. And so what the publisher's model is, let's just say, if we want to sell 10 million copies of Borderlands full price, then we'll see if we can sell 10 million in the first 6 months or 9 months or whatever at $60. And if they hit that number, then they budgeted it, they planned it, then they cut the price to $40 and they'll sell another 5 or 6 million over the next year. Then they'll cut the price to $20 and sell another 10 million over the next year. So I think Borderlands 3, I'm pretty sure Take-Two said it sold 22 million, something like that. And it sold like 8 million the first year. So it sold really roughly 8 million, then 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1 for the next 5 years at lower and lower prices. And all they're doing is milking the franchise and making sure they capture all the revenue they can. When you see Grand Theft Auto 5 selling 110 million, I think is the number, 110 or 115, it probably sold a lot. I mean, 60 at full price. But the last 50 are all discounted, and the last 30 or 40 are $20. So, if it was still $60, they would never have sold 120 million units. So they're just trying to segment the audience into people who are willing to pay for something early and then capture the people who are willing to pay for it late. The analogy is like movies. The movie studios release a film and they'll call it $10 for a ticket to see it in the theater, and they'll charge less to watch it on a rental for DVD or a pay-per-view or a video on demand, and they'll make less money when they put it on HBO. They get a piece of your HBO fees, and they get less money when they put it on commercial broadcast television, and they get even less money when they put it on Netflix 10 years later. So the idea is everybody saw the movie Avatar, for example, but how many saw it in the theater? And the answer is about 200 million people, because it did about 2.5 billion in box office. But more than 200 million people saw the movie, probably 1 billion saw the movie. So they're just maximizing their profit by discounting. So I don't think that's the answer to why you don't increase the price. And it is the answer why Nintendo games hardly ever drop in price, because Nintendo games tend to have a long tail. And part of it is because they're only available on Nintendo hardware. And so, when you sell, let's say, 75 million Switch units, well, in the year you only sold 15, the first year, you only could sell, theoretical maximum 15 million copies of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But as you sell the next 15 and the next 15 and the next 15, those people are looking for high quality games to play. So Nintendo can keep the price up because it's not available anywhere else. So it's kind of a unique situation. And theoretically, Sony could do that with Last of Us 2, and Microsoft could do that with Halo. But Nintendo, I'd say something like 75 or 80% of the dollar sales of games on their platform are made by them. So they kind of have a unique position where Sony and Microsoft are like under 10. I think the right answer to your question, though, is instead of why don't they just discount them slower, I don't understand why the publishers don't just charge for stuff in the game as opposed to trying to get it up front. And I say that because prior to 2005, when games went to 60, there really wasn't much monetization in the game. Like if you bought a game before 2005, so a PlayStation 2 game, you bought the game and you played it and you finished it and you were done. And even if it was multiplayer, and I know there are guys out there who are like, I was playing Halo in 2002 multiplayer. Okay, great, you were. And I was the first Call of Duty 2004 multiplayer. Great. You weren't buying anything. There was nothing to buy. And the publishers passed through a hidden price increase beginning around 2005 or 6. They started offering you downloadable content, and they would give you extra levels in the game for typically between $15 and $20. I remember buying Fallout in 2009, and I bought all 4 expansion packs. And I remember that there was an expansion pass for $50 in 2010 or 11 when the last one came out. I bought it, and I finished all the Berg, I think it was called the pit, Pittsburgh, the pit, and the South Carolina mission. I did everything, but they made $50 more from me. And again, I remember talking to Bethesda, and it was like 20% of the people who bought Fallout did that. But 20% times $50, they made an extra 10. So there's your $10 price increase. They did it through DLC, and then we had games like League of Legends come out, and even tons of mobile games, Clash of Clans, and then you had Hearthstone and Overwatch. And the publishers started to realize we actually don't need to sell DLC. Now they still do, because Call of Duty sold it until about 2 years ago. But they realized that the better way to monetize is give you things to buy in the game. And it turned out mostly cosmetic. And it's kind of migrated now and morphed into Titanfall isn't even a thing anymore. It's become Apex Legends, and it's all free to play and all cosmetic. But they try to charge inside the game after you played it. So you played Overwatch, there's skins to buy on Overwatch. You all play Fortnite, there's skins to buy in Fortnite. And so the real question is, why don't they just emphasize season passes and skins? And if you really want to make $10 more on your NBA game, why not just have a season pass every week for $1? And guess what? Everybody will do it, and you'll make $10 that way. And I don't get it. The other thing about NBA that really stands out to me is that Take-Two sells about 12 million units of the game, and wholesale price is around, call it 50, close enough. They sell most of it at full price. So they sell about $550–600 million worth of NBA. They do about 300 million in NBA online. So in NBA game sales are somewhere around 550–600 million. NBA Online, is about 300 million a year. So let's just call that 50% of game sales. Well, that means if the game is 60, then their average player is paying them an extra 30 to play NBA Online. So it really shocks me that they would take the risk of raising the price by $10, because I think they run the risk of losing a healthy number of people who pay them 90, when they're trying to raise the price, the entry level price, to 70. And I think that begs the question, which is better? Is it better to put ongoing purchases behind a paywall, so you have to pay $60 for Call of Duty or NBA 2K in order to have an opportunity to play NBA Online or to play Call of Duty Warzone? Or is it better to separate the free-to-play version, which is Call of Duty Warzone, and put it in front of the paywall instead of behind the paywall? And Activision took better part of 3 years trying to figure out how to respond to Fortnite. They launched Call of Duty Warzone on March 10th, and they're killing it. They're absolutely destroying it. And they had tried Call of Duty Blackout, if you remember that, in the fall of 2018. That was a year and a half after Fortnite. Complete flop. Didn't work. People hated it. And they made no money. They pulled it from behind the paywall, put it in front of the paywall, and they were afraid it would hurt sales of Call of Duty. And what happened? They reported earnings in April, and they said, wow, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the 2019 $60 game, had record catalog sales in the March quarter. We sold more units in the March quarter of Call of Duty Modern Warfare than we sold in the March quarter of any Call of Duty game in our history. Isn't that amazing? So I think Take-Two would be smarter to take NBA Online, put it in front of a paywall instead of behind the paywall. That thing would probably go from $300 million to $600 million. And they might even sell more copies of NBA at 60 instead of 70. So, fellow babies, thank you for joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. Thank you for your patronage on Patreon. Thank you for linking your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. You can do all of the above, by the way. Thank you for subscribing to us on our YouTube channel. Thank you for following me on Twitter. So I need at least one of those, if not all of those. You can do all of them. That's okay too. See you next time.